I'd like to finish this demonstration of the immune system function really quick. And what we're going to promise ourselves to do is eradicate all these negative things on the left side. If there's any way that we can take away fear and fatigue and starvation and dehydration and get rid of the cortisol, then that'll happen. If we see stress and we watch cattle go from normal behavior to apprehension to anxiety, we have to relieve that panic before that panic motion starts. So very simply, the immune system, this isn't a class on immunology, but that big white blood cell that finds the bad stuff gathers that foreign body up and takes it to the lymph node. And so he takes an antigen or a protein to the lymph node someplace and introduces it to the other white blood cells, and those white blood cells process it and make an RNA map so that they can take that template to the B cells in the lymphocyte, in the lymph node, before we ever make antibodies. But what I want you to know is this thing takes a lot of energy, and it's not an accident.
Neutrophils are white blood cells that hunt and kill bacteria. In this spread, a neutrophil is seen in the midst of red blood cells. Staphylococcus aureus bacteria have been added. The small clump of bacteria release a chemoattractant that is sensed by the neutrophil. The neutrophil becomes polarized and starts chasing the bacteria. The bacteria, bounced around by thermal energy, move in a random path, seeming to avoid their predator. Eventually, the neutrophil catches up with the bacteria and engulfs them by phagocytosis.
Now, if that animal's under the influence of cortisone, that phagocyte never gets out of the blood vessel. The blood vessel walls become so slick that they can't attach and they can't crawl out to the lung or the wound, and they just keep circulating. We used to buy those high-risk calves and take a blood sample and they'd have a high white cell count. We thought that was good. No, they were all in the bloodstream. They weren't out here. And the next thing that happens is that green thing in the center is that phagocyte with his foreign body there, and he's running around inside that lymph node having conversations with these T helper cells. Somebody told me this is like what happens at a singles bar. That I haven't been there for a while, but you bump into people and you have a little visit, but there's really not much information. These two little yellow things are orange things. Those are the B cells. These are the B cells. They want to plan, but they're not doing anything. This is time-lapse photography in hours over here. This goes on and on and on. But every time they bump into each other, now watch this orange one. This is the T killer cell. And when those two get together, there's a dance. They visit. And they get an RNA template, and he starts formulating that template so he can take a specific message to these B cells. This is just truly amazing. And that'll happen. There he goes. There's another encounter. Another encounter. Pretty soon as time goes on, there's more of these. These get really excited, and eventually what you dream about happening is this, one of these there. That's the dream. That's fluorescence, that's an information transfer. That B cell says, okay, I can make a specific IBR antibody or a specific BVD. But these things take thermal energy, they take nutrients, they take chemoattractant heat. It's just a miracle. It's just a miracle. How long does this take? So here we are in feedlot medicine. We used to give calves that had never been vaccinated. We'd vaccinate them on arrival. How long did we have to wait to expect protection? Hours, days, or weeks? Weeks. And by the time that happens, the storm's over. That's why pre-vaccination is so critically important. But this is the first stage. Sarah was talking about cytokines and tumor necrosis factor, interleukin 12. These are chemicals released in that first phase, and that makes cattle, it just knocks the luster off of them. I used to condemn vaccines. If we vaccinated calves on Monday, on Tuesday, they weren't quite right. And I'd cuss the vaccine company. That's what you have to see. If you vaccinate cattle with a good vaccine on Monday and they're no different on Tuesday and Wednesday, either the vaccine isn't working, they're not responding, or they didn't need it. Expect a calf to melt a little bit, okay? But that took 3 days. And then those orange helper cells, that takes another 3 to 6 days when they're trying to get information to take to the B cells. And then that killer cell, that big orange one, he had to work 10 or 11 days. It is almost 11 to 12 days before you ever get any production of antibodies. And I feel guilty to tell you, when I first started doing feedlot work, I recommended revaccination of millions of feedlot cattle at day 11. How stupid was that? If I'd have just taken better care of them and waited one more day, that titer was there. So the more you know about these processes, the better off you are. And what I want to make sure you know is, with your efforts in pre-weaning vaccination in feedlots, we're using less and less and less vaccine. It's vaccinating cattle that don't need it is stupid. Anyway, this is what your dream is. These cattle have been here 20 minutes. Count how many are chewing their cuds. Why is that important? See that black baldy? When we talk about the behavior and the response of the brain to create cortisone from the adrenal gland, their neurophysiologists are finally studying cattle behavior, and there are 2 behaviors that cause the brain to shift. What are they? The most important one is dominant, productive cud chewing. If cattle will relax enough, Sarah talked about salivation, Sarah talked about peace, Sarah talked about all the things that starts. I didn't think feedlot cattle ever chewed their cud when I started, and now I expect every one of them to do it. That cud chewing tells you that the adrenal gland says no more cortisone, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, vasopressin. The other behavior that they've documented that does that is exuberance or play. When you're acclimating calves and they will walk by you and play and jump and buck and put their tails up and say thank you, that's the other behavior we know that affects cortisone levels. And we'll find more. But I really, and so really quickly, we're going to go through some communication things that have helped me learn how to interact with cattle. And then we're going to go to a newborn baby calf and start the year with that baby calf. But if you're going to communicate with cattle, you have to understand them. What is something that a cow will always do? What can you bet on? You walk, if you're all cattle and I walk in that door, what will you all do? They'll all look at, even if you look like me. They'll just, yeah. Okay, that's so important to them. They crave to see you. And if you want to interact with them, then we have to study, you have to understand their eye, and you have to understand their other sensory patterns. I used to think it was the eye only. Only 52% of their communication is visual or with their eyes. 30% or 32% is smell. You know, you'll go out in a pen of cattle and you'll see one doing this. And I thought they were trying to see me more clearly. No, they're trying to smell me. And it's not my aftershave they want. They can smell pheromones. If you've had a fight with your wife before you went to work, or you're worried about the banker, you give off a different odor than if you're peaceful, unless compared to when you've sat down and said grace. It's huge, and they can tell that. Smell, some of my processing barns where they brand and open abscesses and don't clean the barn, you can't get cattle in that building. If they clean it up, zoom, zoom, zoom. Smell is a big deal to them. What other sense is important to them is their ears. I'll show you a picture in a minute of the eye, but the ear, if the chute's here and a calf is standing here, and you're over here, right here, and both of his ears are back, why the hell would you think he'd step forward? He will not go until he puts his ears forward. So you got to figure out how to get his ears forward. How do you do that? Just come up here in front of him, and his ears will just come up, walk by him, and in he goes. So there's simple little things about understanding that is so important. First thing we do is avoid human voice. They're not verbally based species. I first thought it was because they didn't understand Spanish when I started. Hell, they don't understand English either. What do they like? Silence. Silence. I used to whistle at cattle. How many of you have seen somebody get a herd of cattle going and the people in the back start screaming or whistling? How many things can a cow think of at once? And if she's thinking about walking and you scream at her, back her ears come. Yeah. No voice, no voice. My wife talks to her cows when she's going through them. And I said, that's all right, but I'd rather you whispered to them so they almost have to go, what is she talking about? Yeah. If they can hear you, it's too loud. How much does a horse or cow hear? What is their hearing like? My friend, the people in Australia are doing a lot of work on this. Last year, Shane came up, he documented that on a cool, soft, quiet morning, a meadow in Australia, you have two horses standing out there, and they're 8 feet apart. One can hear the other's heartbeat. Can you imagine that? You think they can't hear my heartbeat when I'm trying to get on one? If they can hear a heartbeat, what does it sound like when you scream at them? Yeah, it's a miracle. So no voice, positive attitude. If you're a negative person and they're used to it, be negative. If you're full of life and hope, be full of life and hope. They hate change. They'll get to know you. If you're an idiot, be an idiot. But be an idiot every day. They'll learn to know you. So if we can't talk to them, what do we use to move them? Our posture, our position, our attitude. Do you stand like this? Or do you stand like this? Or do you stand like this? Do you stand still? I used to tell people, in a little pen of Brahma calves, I said, stand still. They'll tear the fence down. They can't find you. Have no sense of distance. The only way they got peripheral vision, but no depth perception. How do you tell them where you are? You just wiggle. They can see the grass or a coyote move just from that movement, but if that coyote stands still, they can't find him. They go crazy. Never stand still in a pen of cattle. Act like your hip hurts. Act like your back hurts. Do something. Go up, go back. So posture is really important. Distance, there's a lot written about a flight zone. If you want cattle to flee, think about that. But if you want them to come to you, it's a working zone. If you want them to move for you, it's a working zone, not a flight zone. And you'll find it, and they're all different. The thing that I want you to understand is as the cattle start respecting you and trusting you, that working zone will get smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's really fun. Now, first time you walk in a pen and you're 30 feet from them, there'll be somebody do something. By the time you work with them correctly, you can be from me to you before they do anything. You can change the working zone. Use straight lines, angles and direction. If you're horseback and you get in someplace and you think you're in the wrong place, you would never ever turn your horse to leave. Let him tuck his head and back him up and then go. That's just like, it's very straight lines. Horsemanship and stockmanship are so highly integrated. I've got some friends that work with me, and I'm not a horseman, but I want to be and I will be. But their most important thing for me is to make sure that that horse's cadence of feet is what you want the cattle to do. If you want a cow to do this, your horse has to do that. If your horse does that, so will he. Or if your horse slows down, so will he. That foot cadence is really amazing. So how do you get where you need to be if you're late without doing that? Those horses are trained to take baby steps and not go anywhere, or take giant steps and get someplace quick. It's just, and they understand that if you'll let them learn that. But some of these team roping runs, I don't know how many of you watched some of those, but some of those kids are roping cattle in 3.7, 3.8, 4.1. If you slow that video down, what do those two horses and that steer and that roper have in common? Synchrony, harmony, rhythm. Both horses are in the left lead. And when that steer's left front lands, so does that head and horse's front left. It's just amazing. And the cadence is the same, the rhythm's the same, the speed's the same, and the front of that rope is hitting the ground, hitting the ground, hitting the ground. It's not a mistake they can do that. When one of them are out of time, it looks crazy. It don't work. So that whole harmony of the speed of movements and all that sort. We will continue to learn about field timing and balance. We're always talking about pressure and release, right? What's important, the pressure or the release? The release. You push on something and he moves, and you back up. I got some young horses and I'm trying to get them to back up. And I'll touch them a little bit or wiggle my fingers. And the minute they start back, I release. And Shane said, Dr. Tom, you're getting better, but you'll really make progress when you release when he thinks about backing up, not waiting until he does. It's just, man, it's so much fun to learn about these things. So our challenge is to learn. What Bud had to teach me is everything I was doing was backwards. We had 700 yearlings, rough country. I'd have 8 or 10 neighbors come to gather them. And we never got them all. We'd always miss some. Bud said, he said, I'd like to go with you. And I said, well, how much help do we need? And he said that deal is nobody if you'll get out of the way. And so he and I and this dog went and got 350 of these. And they come down here by the fence, and we're sitting out there. We're sitting out here, horseback, out in front of them. And the gate was right down there, and the trucks were coming. I said, Bud, we gotta get going. And he said, well, how would you start this herd moving again? We said, I told him I'd trot around in a circle, and I'd use gentle angles, and I'd push on the back. He said, I know you would. Why would you do that? What stopped, the front or the back? The front. And he said, work with the front. I said, well, that red calf must be the front. No, I said, that's some hard-keeping neurotic thing that the smart cattle have pushed out in front in case there's a wolf over the hill. That ain't the front. I said, where the hell's the front? He said, the smartest cattle are usually in the second row. I said, well, how do you work with the second row? That dog's name was Ziggy, and he said, Ziggy knows more than you do. He knows. I said, well, tell him, the trucks are coming. So he looked down at that gate, and that dog come out here to the side, and he went past that this black heifer right here, pulled her head around, and then he went to the front of her and walked by her eye, and that heifer and that dog took all 320 of them down the gate, and they just stood there, and we rode down there and opened the gate. That was new to me. That was new to me. So these are things that he knew. It was truly amazing. So this is a diagram by Dr. Temple, and this is correct. This point of balance is the shoulder if you want cattle to go in a circle. That alleyway, if you want cattle to do this, work at the shoulder. But if you have to drive them very far doing this, it takes all day. So you go out, instead of being the point of balance, we have the point of focus, and we work with that. That's the point of balance. That's the point of focus. The shoulder is mostly there to keep the front of the animal up off the ground. Why did God make that eye with a horizontal pupil? Why is that pupil horizontal? Why is it on the side of his face? So he can see 360 degrees around him when he's grazing. He puts that head down and he can see behind. You can't, try, next time you see a horse grazing on a meadow, get down on your hands and knees and see if you can sneak up and grab him by the fetlock. You can't, until he picks his head up. Then he's only 285 degrees, and don't do that, but you could. The thing I didn't know about this eye is you can be behind cattle and still work on the eye, but you have to be able to visualize the eye. If you get in there behind him like a team roper and you can't see any part of that globe, you're in the blind spot, and he'll turn around. If you want to practice turning cows around at home, just go out there quietly and get right behind them, right at their tail. And I'll guarantee you, what will they do? Turn around so they can see you. So if you don't want them to turn around, don't be there. And the reason these cattle all respond a little differently is the shape of this forehead. This old Brahmas, he has any binocular vision. He can't see around his Roman nose. I've got a horse like this. You got to give him, if there's something happen over here he needs to see, you've got to give him time to get clear over there, or he'll never see it. It's because of the shape of his face. That eye is, so you can make him go forward by pushing him from behind here. How do you stop him? You go by him. Parallel motion will stop him. And what does this eye do when he wants to turn this way and get away from you? That eye rolls clear to the front. He'll tell you for 2 steps, I'm going. Watch that. And you got to clean your glasses to see that. That's not easy sometimes. So if you want to take some pictures of some slides, these would be the ones I would take a picture of. They crave to see you. They love to follow each other. They want to walk straight, control cattle foot speed with handler foot speeds, and there's only 2 or 3 animals in there that you have to work with. These herds of cattle are just like a church or a community or a school. There's only 3 or 4 troublemakers in every group. And if you can get the confidence of those troublemakers, you can lead the whole herd. It's really important. Cattle will always come back or want to come back from where they came from. Watch the ears, watch the eyes. How long will it take them to turn around? How long does it take a cow to change her mind? 5 to 7 seconds.
5.
They want to see their source of guidance, they want to see their destination, and they want to come half around you. Which eye is he working on? The right eye. We want cattle to volunteer to go. We want them to go there because they want to go. So when we used to ship, when I first started, if we had a pen of fat cattle here and we wanted them to go out this door and go down the drover's alley that way, we would bring 3 cowboys in here, and where did they go? They'd circle around down there by the coffee pot, and they'd try to shove the cattle out of this gate. Today, if we want cattle to leave this gate and go down the drover's alley this way, our dream is to be able to empty the pen right here. They can see me, they can see the gate, and they can go half around me. And if you get them going there because they want to, those other cattle can't help but follow them. They're just magnets. If I want them to go out this gate and go down the drover's alley this way, I'll come over here. They'll come to me, they'll see the gate, they'll see me, they'll come half around you. Which direction will be the easiest? This one, because I'll have the left eye against me. I'll be a little handier on this side. Over here I can do it, but it's going to take a little more skill. Always start with the left eye. Give them a chance to make the right decision. My Spanish boys, they'll start a sick animal toward the gate, and they'll be pushing on, and they'll be going down the fence, and this steer will stop, and the minute he stops, they push on him. I said, wait. That first time they stop, you have to count, especially if it's a Brahma, you have to count to 7 before you ask him to go. And that old steer will stop, and I'll go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And about the time I say siete, that steer will step forward. And they go, Dr. Tom, he can count. No, the second time he stops going down there, don't count to 7, 5. So go to 7, 5, 3. And it's so important. Work the lead, work the front. When I used to have a group of cattle back here and I wanted to bring them in the bud box and I wanted 5 to go, I would walk until I had 5 cattle in front of me, and then I'd push those 5 in. What was happening back there? I was shoving the other cattle against the gate. Take 2 to get 10. So come back here. The minute you get 2 cattle going, take steps with purpose, stop, back up, and you'll have 50. Use curiosity. Give them cattle a chance to learn you. Stay out of their blind shot, and try not to ask them to turn around. If they're, no matter where you want to go, if they're headed someplace, take them, direct them, and come back. It's hard for cattle to turn around, especially if they're fat. JJ, I want you to help me with this. I said, Bud, where'd you learn all this? And he never did tell me, but what he knew was inside these border collies. That's everything he learned was from this. This dog's 5 months old. I needed the cattle in a pen over there. So he put them in this corner and then started the front. He knew he wanted them to go left, so he went on that side. When one of them did something beautifully, he said, thank you. Now, I was behind him with a camera, and he went way out there, and I thought, what the hell's he doing out there? Well, now what he was telling, that's where you should be. Why don't you go out there and you can guide the front? But I didn't know what he wanted, so I got my camera back here, and he said, well, he doesn't know anything, so I'll just do it myself. And when he looks at me like that now, I go someplace. How do you stop cattle? Go parallel. He's teaching them. Boop, boop, boop. How do you start them? Go against them. Use the pressure. What is he pushing on? The eye, the corner of that eye. Whoops. Use the pressure it'll take. Now you look at me, watch what he does when he goes over here. He looks at me like, you idiot. See? What he's teaching us, if it isn't going right, stop. People in Australia say the thing that would help most American stockmen, the problem we have now is we've quit making our own cigarettes. He said, you don't have to smoke them, but when things aren't right, just stop and walk away. And about roll you a cigarette, throw it down, and you'll get along better. But look at that voluntary, those 83 heifers are going around that corner into that pen, and they're not coming back. They're telling you they perceive to belong in that other pen. I got the brand papers. These 4 heifers came from a ranch with really good dogs. And here I am back here with my camera telling the heifers to come to me. The dog thinks they're supposed to come to me. And hell, I should have been up in front of them bales. And he just give up on me. He said, I can't get you to move. Cattle crave these dogs. And so he went around, I couldn't believe this. He ran around these bales and they came to find him. Oh. That black heifer's rubbing on that gate. How would you move an animal to the left? You'd come to the right and say thank you. Sometimes they're behind cattle, but in those cattle minds, they're beside them. They never stay there. They never stay there. JJ, what do you see?
Well, I can see why you were standing where you were, but of course you already said it. You wish you'd be up. So if you were to do that again, you would have went either to the middle or to the front end of those bales and let the cattle see you. And then, of course, you're going to use your dog, you're going to use that dog's 1,000 years of DNA to try to bring stuff to you. And that's actually a really neat dog. That dog has a lot of feel for cattle. I used to trial border collies, and I always liked a dog kind of like that, where they were a little bit softer and more thoughtful, where a lot of people, they'll ask me, well, I'm looking for a border collie, but I want a really tough one with a whole bunch of bite. And I always tell them, well, that's all fine and good, but those dogs are hard to handle. That's a lot of dog, and they're hard to train, and they're hard-headed, and they're also hard on cattle. But I've always liked a dog just like that one, where they're a little softer and they're very thoughtful. You talk about pressure and release. That dog knows about release. As soon as those cattle just wiggle, he's gone, and he goes to the next one. So that's a neat dog. That's a very instinctive dog, and all you got to do is stay out of that dog's way.
Thank you so much, JJ, and thank you. People ask how much training it took to get him to do that. He's training me. If you get a pup like that, don't hurry him, but just go out and get some cattle to come up to you. And it'd be nice if he knew was sit and down and here and a couple things. But that first time, if you just send him and you look, he's supposed to go around there, and you're at 12 o'clock. When he gets about over there to 6 o'clock, all you have to do is swing your eyes ahead of him, and he'll just go down. And he'll just stay there. And then you just give him a few seconds, and then you walk from here to there, and he'll come here. And that's all they have to do. And they all can do it if you let them. But I don't have time to tell you Bud's dog stories. All the dogs he had were all dogs that people were going to shoot because they screamed at him, tried to tell the dog what to do. That dog's telling me what to do. That little Toby they were going to shoot him because the guy would yell at him. He killed all the chickens on the ranch. And the guy kept yelling at him, so he went to the neighbor and killed theirs. So they finally caught him, and Bud took him home and just let him work. And I was down there about 3 months later, and Toby was my favorite. We got in at dark, and he said, Dr. Tom, you put Toby away, and he lives in house 12. I went under there with my flashlight, and that dog was living, and there was a sitting hen back in the corner of his doghouse sitting on a nest full of eggs. So he'd gone from a chicken killer to living with a sitting hen. Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, back and forth. If you have cattle running at you and you want to stop them, don't do the big bird thing. Just do this. And if you want them to turn and go straight that way, just go back on this line. If you want them to turn and go that way, go at this angle. Go at this angle.
The longer we go.
We're talking about bison. There's a bunch of bison in there, and I'm down on the other side of that fence, and I'm going to bring them up this alley, and all I did was get in front of them, and they came to me. And so they do pretty good till they get in here where they hung all that crap on the fence. And boy, they get touchy. They know there's people there, they just can't see them. And they'll get confused. They're having to run them through the alley to sort of my gender. Whoops. Okay, now watch. Give them just a little more room, and then just go back and forth. They'll go back. They're not sure. Same thing. They'll learn. They'll learn. And to turn around and take them. Pretty effective. This is take 2 to get 10, even on these Holsteins. 2 steps, step back, and they just go. What's precious is what's behind him. They all say, I want to be next. Can I go? I want to go. I want to go. By the time we got done reimplanting this little group of cattle, they're up there at the door waiting for him. Always, always take 2 to get the next. Always the front, always the front. He's looking at the ground. 1, 2, that's enough. This was a closed facility, and this boy in the green shirt, to keep this chute full, he was having to walk clear back to that no back and twist their tails or hot shot them to get in. So we made this window so the cattle could see him, and all those cattle would come up and look at him, and we taught him to, whoops. Sorry. Watch that animal. 1 step back, past his eye. Don't go past their eye or you'll pull their head around. And they just keep coming. If you have people along the alley, this won't work. You got to get the people out of there. Yeah, this next one's about perfect, I think. There, half step's enough. This is 26 minutes or seconds long. Count these. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 in 30 seconds. That's 8 a minute times 60. That's 480 an hour. with 2 people and 1 guy horseback in a bud box. They have plenty of time to acclimate their calves. It doesn't take them long to process. Watch this girl. She's from Brazil. This is what stockmanship looks like. They're big old touchy yearlings. And Deborah, just go back and watch her bring a draft of cattle. They're walking at the same, her feet and their feet are the same. She looks down. She has a flag, but it's mostly just, I don't know what she does with it, nothing really. Then she knows once you get them there, you go to the front and invite them to go to the next step. So she'll go in there and open that gate. Sometimes she'd bring 3. I got all these rules, and she'd bring 3 and then 6 and then 11 and then 2, 4, 8, 7. And I said, Deborah, how many do you like to bring? And she speaks Portugal and English both. I just thought she didn't. I said, how many do you like to bring? No. Third time I asked her, I said, Deborah, how many do you bring? She goes, whatever wants to go. Whatever's ready. Watch this Charolais steer. She opens the gate and looks at the ground, looks at the ground, looks at it. Watch him ask her for direction. When he looked at her, she looked to the back of the bud box. And when she shut this gate, she just looked down the Daniels Alley. They worked 750 cattle, and they never had anybody in the bud box. Watch that Charolais steer. Watch his ears. There, go. So simple. Look where you want them to go. Look where you want them to go. Okay, wherever you see these 5 amigos, those are the leaders. Your information on Bob is amazing. Kingbird, where he got started doing that, we used to run 750 yearlings, and I've ruined my boys because we'd check cattle every Saturday in 1,500 acres, and those cattle were scattered. It took us all day to check 1,500 acres. When Bud taught us how to manage a gate, if we could see 3 or 4 cattle, the whole herd was there grazing together. What did we do different? It was the way we let them out of that gate the first time to go to the pasture. In Nebraska, we'll have people turn out 250 steers on a pasture, and you go by there for 3 days, and they're walking the perimeter of the pasture. Why? They didn't manage the gate. You don't turn out 500. Stand at the gate and you turn out 20, and they'll go from here to that chair and they'll start grazing. And you step out and let 15 more, and they go halfway to the chair. And you step back and you let out 50, and they start eating in the pen. They don't, Manage the gate, manage the gate. If you need to move this herd, you promise me to run up here where I am and step over and pull this calf's eye around, go by his eye, and he'll take them anywhere you want to go. That's the key. Cattle want to see what's pressuring them, so you're at the front. Well, you ought to see the destination, and they want to come half around.
Direction, like that.
This is terrible. Never do this.
Oh, cowboys.
This is a care.
You should have rode up, went down this fence line to make the cattle make a big black turn.
About a third of these cattle are hitting their shoulder, their ribs, their hip on that post, and they're all tearing their feet up on that concrete. This is what causes toe abscesses and sole abscesses in feet yards. That is so bad. Those cattle are saying either he doesn't know or he doesn't care.
They don't have enough grooves in their cement. I tried to, when they were laying some of these grooves, I tried to get...
This guy knows. Back it up. This guy's got numbers on his shirt. He's from the prison workforce, and he's the greatest stockman in Kansas now. He knows what to do. Cattle can see him. They can come a half around him, and they can see the destination. None of them are hitting the post. Their feet are square and strong. Those cattle were easy to sort, easy to process. That other group were just neurotic. Practice position. Practice position. He's got a paddle and a whip, and that's his pacifier. We're gonna cut his paddle off, and we'll cut his stick in half. Pretty soon it'll just be him. This is a good use of your hands. Shane needs to send those cattle out of the holding pen to the right. He's on the correct side. He's got his back to him. He's counting them. Those cattle can see him. They can see the destination. They come a half around. That's proper position. I said, Addie, you show people how to empty this pen. And she got up on all smoky, and I said, Grandpa told me to go in there and come over to this corner and push them out. And I said, let's try something new. Stay by the gate so the cattle can see you, and they can see the destination, and then go half around you. And they can follow each other. Look at these animals are chewing their cuds. That's proper position. That's gate management. That is what changes the grazing behavior. Watch that black baldy stopped, and Addie thought, I better go get this one. But watch what this horse knows. No use going after him till you push this one on the nose. Then he'll go, so will his friend. How long will that one stand there? 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's almost embarrassed. I asked the people in Australia, when do you process new cattle? Not till we can do, one person can create this in a pen. Single file movement. This is acclimation. I can take them out of a corner, stay at a 45-degree angle, take the front, go with the front, and they'll all follow each other. Vaccines respond in cattle like that. Always lead your cattle home after you process. We used to just chase them to their new home pen. This is a shepherd. This does more to cut down time of acclimation. That's what this is, in Australia, they've taught all their cattle to follow them. That is just so critically important, and that makes Americans nervous to do that. So reading cattle, if you go in a pen and cattle are there, and where do they want you? Never ignore that. If you're riding a pen, do not ride behind this one and go check them. Run right out in front of that first charlet, get them straight, go by, and these cattle will move clear to the other end. This is a pure request for guidance. If you wanted to move this herd to the left, jump on Old Bay. Which cattle are the leaders? This one got hair over his eyes he can't even see. This one's looking for a wolf. This one's looking for a calf. That black cow and that semi are the leaders. All you do is ride down here in front of this black cow, straighten out her face, and she'll take them. Watch for that. These are the gears in cattle. If you want to stop them, think of a railroad track and go parallel. If you want to speed them up, go against them. If you want them to continue, go with them, but go just a little out. Stop, go, continue. Every time this steer stopped, so did he. You got to stop too. Go to the front. Bring your horse's face by his eye, then give him more room. He'll stop 2 or 3 times. Stop 2. Don't push on him, stop. Push on his nose. That is continue, stop and go. Probably ought to take his sick little brother with him. Just stop. Sorry. That's too loud. This lady was working these Holsteins, and she kept screaming and hitting them on the shoulder. And I said, what works better if the cattle are coming up an alley and you have a little stick in your hand? Always go from front to back, front to back, front to back. If they walk up behind the chute and they hesitate, I used to thump them in the ribs. If they stop and you just remind them, they'll just jump in the chute. Jump in the chute. Always front to back, front to back. If they're Brahma cattle, use a stick. If they jump up, they'll break your arm. We're going to run out of time, so what this slide is about, to learn this stuff, get off your horse, get out of your four-wheeler, get off your side-by-side, get out of your pickup, and learn to do this afoot. When you can do it afoot, then you can get on your horse. If you got a side-by-side or a pickup, stop at the gate and get out and walk. Our cattle, we're feeding our cattle and bale unrollers. We drive in there. Those cattle don't know there's even a human in those tractors. You got to get out. This is really what we need to do with the cow-calf year. These kinds of things will affect first service AI conception rates. They will change nursing frequency. We used to have cattle get enterotoxemia and just die like flies, and we vaccinated and vaccinated and vaccinated. And when we taught calves to drink 20 times a day instead of twice a day, the vaccine started to work. And now we don't even vaccinate. That has such an effect on neonatal health, disease resistance, and if you can get cattle to gain weight on weaning day, my dreams is that we can work together and we don't have any screaming, bawling calves on weaning day. That's such a sad thing. We need to work with our truck drivers. They're getting better, and if you can get some model drivers that understand animals and then have them be your Gestapo or your police and teach the other guys. Procurement, don't buy cattle that are going to die. Buy good cattle. I'm sorry. Prudent antibiotic use. Those 3 animals I showed you, the reason I showed you that, one of those needed an antibiotic and the other 2 did not. And if we're not using a stethoscope or our brain, we would have treated all 3 of them. We really got to get better. This is why Bud moved to Binkelman. This is what we used to expect. These came from Phillipsburg, Montana, unloaded at 2 o'clock. They were doing this 6 hours. We used to run cattle like that because somebody said you got to process them day 1. No wonder our vaccines didn't work. Are they drinking? Are they eating? Are they laying down? That's so sad. We still get some of these cattle and we can fix them, but our preference is to prevent it. These are my wife's calves. The mothers were loaded up 3 hours ago to the cornfields, and these calves are waiting to go to the backgrounding yard. Once in a while, one of them will say something, but they're just chewing their cud and converting the milk and the grass they ate this morning. She rides in the truck with them to the yard. They follow her to the bunk. They eat 1.8% of their body weight in hay the first 20 minutes, go get a big drink of water and lay down. This is so necessary. It starts right there. If you see a cow with a baby, they should not be more than 25 feet away. This change, these people used to have hellish health problems. They're going to sell that black cow. She should be closer to him. That and a water source for babies is the biggest health. When Pat's talking about vitamins and minerals and nutrients and conversion and efficiency, this is a girl calf, that's a boy calf. When behavior's right, those little girls are more apt to snuggle their mama than the boys. This can be created. First time I went to this ranch, they were calving 800 heifers. We went up there at lunchtime in the hills, and there's 300 baby calves laying around this windmill with 4 babysitting cows. And when those cows came in, those calves just had a feeding frenzy. Some of those heifers would let 2 calves suck, some 3, some 1, some none. And the fact that your stockmanship, these are the same, this is the first set of heifers we trained. That's the difference. If you have to tag, I buy cows, this calf's 3 days old, and the first 2 days she'd hit my pickup. And so I didn't go out there. And so I've been working, I'd be about 100 yards away, and I just taught her to go up and down this fence. Well, his navel's, I'm scared to death he's got navel ill, so I got to catch him and treat him, and I might as well tag him. But I paid more attention to the calf, and I forgot about the cow's working zone, and I chased her away. Never chase a cow away from its baby. So off she went. How do you stop a cow? Go parallel. Few steps and she'll stop. When she stops, you got to stop. And then I look down. Watch what she does. Poof. Oh, I forgot him. Well, what I want you to see is how little it takes to change this separation. I want this baby to be closer to its mama. That's too far. All you have to do is nod to him. That's what I like, and then release. This little thing coming out from under this tree, he should be nursing. Put him under that, show him what you want him to do. He's asking. Get to work. Now this calf I got to catch, I used to chase him. Now I teach them to chase me. So I just go in front of him, watch his ears. Who are you? I'm going to push on his left eye and see if I can teach him to drive. And when he goes, I'm going to see if I can teach him to stop. Yep. And then they'll usually come to you, or you can get a hold of them. If you get a hold of them, don't throw them down. Rub on their back till they relax. Get him used to your hands. Now just pick up a flank and he'll sit down like a dog. But my hands, I'm not very good at this. But anyway, never ask that cow not to do that. If he bellers, you're going to get hurt. So rub on that ear till you know he won't move. Rub on that ear. Rub on that ear. And she'll want to see both ends of him. The most important part of this job is what you do when you let the calf up. You've got to give the calf back to the mama. You got to rub on him till he relaxes again. Rub on him. Rub. Watch what this cow does. She licked her nose, just like a colt in a round pen. 3 days ago, she was hitting my pickup. We used to sell our wild cows. Now we fix them. That's not a very good video. If you have to get birth weights, use this sling. Don't hang your calves up from a tree. Just build you one of these little rebar things. Make a little hammock there, and he can just relax. And keep him between the baby, and he'll and then let him put him back with him also. I wouldn't recommend calving in this country in February, unless you got a lot of hay. But what I wanted you to see is, because of the way they handle their cows, Missy can go in and and just say hello to this baby. This is presence. This is confidence. This is trust. That's a second calf heifer. They did that last year and it didn't bother anything. It's okay. If you go up there and that cow says, "This is mine, I'm going to hurt you," believe her. Don't tag him. Hell, that's her calf. The next day she'll be better. Tag her the third day or the fourth day. But don't. If you have a cow that says no, don't do it. Don't get hurt. Give him back. Rub on him. Give him back. Bart, this is exercise pairing. So now we don't tag. We've quit tagging cattle here. Instead, we put them together and make sure every pair gets one exercise pairing lesson. And we put them together and show them that when we move cattle, you've got to be a team. And even if you go 20 feet, they know. The main thing in this video is you would never leave this calving ground with calves laying down, even if it's not stormy. There's about 5 or 10 of them. Jeremy will give these, but look at these 3 heifers. They go, "Oh, Jeremy's here. I better get to he wants me with that calf." They learn so fast. So never leave a calving ground with cattle laying down. How much more time we got, Trish? A minute or two. Okay. All right. So anyway, so when we move these cattle, we expect them, even if we're out in a pasture in the summer, we do 2 things. We video our cows to condition score them, and we put the calves with the cows. If you go gather cattle and it's breakfast time, never ever interrupt nursing. These are pre-weaned. You sit there and you either pray or mess with your phone until they get done sucking. If you look that way, they'll all go. Never ever interrupt nursing. You always got leaders, and you train those 3 or 4 cows up there. When you look that way, they'll take the herd. Manage the gate. This is what changes everything. This is my neighbor's section. We had to cross his deal to get to ours. But there's somebody at that gate saying, "Here I am, you go through here and there's a better place." Manage the gate, manage the gate, manage the gate. This is the most important thing you do at weaning. You would never go in that pen and chase calves out of there. You'd stand there till they all came to you and walked by you and went straight. This changes everything. Work along the side. Never be behind a group of cattle. These are calves that were trained at the gate. We need to send them to another cornfield. They went up there and they started these 3 cattle, and off they go. And you're nobody behind. You're along here. So if one slows down, you just nod to him. Always straight. Cows should move like this. They're going 7 or 8 miles to the cornfields. These people never wean their calves. They take their calves with them all winter and supplement them a little bit. Then they come in there in July and sell these 900-pound calves. No weaning problems. Train your babies, even if you're going to rope them, train them to go through these alleys. They'll never forget that. Young animals learn so much more quickly. When we have people pushing cattle to a cradle, have them use their hands. When we castrate bulls, we always give them meloxicam and Ferapes. Okay. So they're just absolutely normal the next day. There's no interruption in their pain. We use a cradle. I thought they were going to use a cradle here. These calves were really quiet and everything. We were going to put them down the alley. Then I heard a bunch of racket, and then these guys showed up. those other calves were quiet enough. I'd listen to them with a stethoscope. Their heart rate was 66. His heart rate was 146. 1,300-pound horse, 260. Sorry. Okay, so we just do a draft and we just teach them to go down that alley. And then we bring them back. And if you want to rope them, you can send them out that alley. Trish, so ask me, when I ask Chris to show me how they brand in Australia, what we did, he said, what day are you going to brand? I said, Saturday. Wednesday night, we were coming home from the feedlot early and the cows were down this meadow. So we gathered these 130 pairs. We had 2 pins, pin A and pin B. And we just let them settle and we let the pairs go from pin A to pin B. We walked out, messed around. Pretty soon when they came back from pin B to pin A, he let the cows through and the calves stayed in that pin, okay? And then I said, now what do we do? And he said, there was a little walk-through gate down there and we had 2 10-foot Powder River panels and we just made a little alley there. And all the calves were over in that pen. We turned the cows out in front of that alley and went to supper. I don't know when it happened, but sometime in the night, all 130 of those calves went through that alley and they were out there nursing the next morning. They trained themselves. Well, Saturday come time to brand, they come in, pin A, pin B, and the calves all started running to that alley. And you could let them out there, you could rope them if you want to, but we just put a calf cradle there. When we did the pre-wean vaccination, we had the luxury of having the same facility, but instead of using a cradle, we had a squeeze chute. And instead of vaccinating them and let them go with their mama, we took a set of panels and made a pin. And we asked those, and strung some oat hay around the pen, and we asked those babies to have a slumber party one night away from their mothers. Had a water tank, oat hay around the pen, and turned them out. Diane was down there next morning at daybreak, let them go back out and nurse, and that's all we did to those black calves to change that behavior. And so it's just, it's all, these are great times. People get together. The reason this is so special is the FFA there had a slave auction, and we went in there and bought kids that had never had a chance to be at a ranch or farm, and we let them come out there and we coached them. We had a beautiful lunch. That was a really good thing for those kids. But I got to figure out a way to have a stockmanship clinic for young people and just in the pen, and we can have supper, but we ought to leave the cattle out there in the pasture and let them get big instead of hassling them. But anyway, this is training calves in Australia. We went through the facility 3 times and they were working so good. Chris said, I wonder if these calves will go through the facility backwards. He's standing over in the shade and 80 head of these little Brahma calves just showed off. They love to learn. They love to learn. How far over are we, Trish? We're okay? Okay. This place used to have a 16% first service conception rate. And if you went in these, when I went here and they're sorting mothers off to synchronize or to put cedars in them, and there'd be 5 Brazilians in here screaming with sticks and clubs. Now just one person. This is the first set of heifers we trained. All those heifers know you're supposed to come to your handler, go by him, and go straight. Where did they learn this? Where did they learn this trust? I thought their focus was on AI, because the AI conception rates have gone to 88. But they shut the gate. Their focus is on these babies. Every time they sort pairs to AI or breed or synchronize, they give these babies a lesson, and it takes no time. They got just a whole straight old wooden alley, and they let them play. What amazes me, those heifers are away from their babies, and it's silent. There's nobody crying. No dust, no cry. There's vocalization, but that's not crying. They're just talking. This is quadrupled their first service. They just, the chute's open, they just go. When we haul pairs in the drought, if you can have your unloading chute close to your processing facility. We just used to let these calves go find their mamas, and now the minute they get off a trailer or a truck, they get a lesson. It should be illegal to have a veterinarian bangs vaccinate a heifer the first time she's in a chute. You should always say, how many times have you let them go through there without an injection? And if you don't have time to do it, the veterinarian should do it. They just have fun. They like to learn. These are those calves that we pre-wean vaccinated, and they're spending that first night away, just silent. That's quite a little different than those Charolais cattle. When we buy sale barn cattle, we got this bud box thing sitting there, and they get off the trailer and they just get educated right there. We bring them back to process them, they just go. We're going to skip ahead here real quick. If somebody asked me about building facilities, probably this picture, whoops. This alley needs to be 14 foot wide, and there should be, this is before I got it built, there should be pins on the other side of this alley so you can sort both ways. But this alley is 14 feet wide, and this bud box is 32 to 36 feet long, so you can put one deck of cows on it or one deck of fat cattle. If we're preg checking, we use this bud box that goes that way. If we're shipping, we just shut that gate and we use the same bud box to go on the truck. So we use the same bud box for two purposes. Never put cattle in that bud box if the truck's not ready. It took 7 or 8 seconds for these cows to decide that there's no place else to go. I better come back. I want to go where I came from. You can start seeing 2 or 3 of them up there starting to say, I think I'd like to get out of here. And then you just let them get out of there. All of these holding pins are rectangular. There's no slants or anything. They're all just a rectangle, and then you can teach people how to sort. I'll show you a picture of these pins in a second. But I don't like these curved loadouts, but there's a creek over there, and it was easier to curve this than move the river. So. This truck driver's in the right place. You can't even see him. I asked these guys, where do you load cattle in the Northern Territory? What kind of corrals do you have? He says, we don't have any facilities. We train 10% of them to want to be on a truck. And so when we get there, they get mixed up with the herd, and we just load the trucks from the side. They'll get mixed up in there, and there's always cattle that want to be on a truck. That kid in the back, watch him. He's half border collie. Watch their heads. What do they do just before they step in there? Their heads goes down. They just nod. That's how they see where they're going. It was a really hot day. We went and had a glass of tea, left that end gate open. We were gone 15 minutes, and all those calves were still in the truck. They didn't come out till he went out and emptied them. So let me back up a second to that. Okay, so what I was doing wrong when I was building pens is I was hanging the gates wrong. So when you build these pens along this alley, just set a post. Where's my pointer? Just set a post right here and hang the gate this way. This way. This way. Same way back here. Hang the gate from these posts. When we have a big bunch of cows to work, we just open all these gates. Those cows come in there and they come in this pen and fill it, come in this pen and fill it, come in this pen and fill it, and then you shut the gates and they just take a nap. Why do we load the holding pens from this end? Because we tried putting them in this way, and that's why they wanted to go out. They always will exit better out of the gate they went in. So, and on this picture, this was taken before I got the pin. You need pins on both sides, and then you got 50 ways to sort. Any questions on that? That's a dual-purpose dog. He catches rabbits, and he always points with his tail where he wants the cows to go. They'll just go down there and fill those pens, and you shut the gate. And if then we can sort 4 ways out of a pen. We sort more cattle in the pen than we do in the alleys now. That alley, even at 14 feet wide. So if you're going to sort reds from blacks or boys from girls, just put them in a pen and teach somebody the right place to stand. You can have a lot of fun. Thank you.